Welcome to Financial Health channel. Austerity and time. In the last article, I talk about how to communicate with each other in order to reform our social and economic system. Our language capacity will help us make the changes we need. During the last election in the United States, a majority of people decided to elect leaders capable of providing concrete, long-term solutions to the effect of climate change. Water shortage in Arizona, Utah, California, hurricane, floods. Forget conspiracy theory and other demagogic nonsense. The elected officials knew how to communicate their solution to the voters. This should inspire us to reconsider some of our economic and social policy that harm a majority of people. If we want to reform our socio-economic system, we must be able to communicate. This communication can only take place if the two parties are able to agree on the definition and the nature of what they want to talk about. Take as an example the latest austerity messages from governments around the world. Central banks are imposing fiscal, monetary, and industrial austerity. This austerity affects the majority of people who do not control the asset, the capital of the economy. Companies, the rich, are the least affected. Austerity means less. Less of what? Definition of austerity: a set of economic policies that aim to reduce the government budget deficit through spending cut, tax increase, or a combination of both. Based on wikipedia.org. Fiscal: there are budget cuts, less money for social programs, education, health. It's us who are affected, not the big company and the rich. There are tax increases. Government tax the multitude. We are affected by it, not the multinational and the rich. They lobby to get out of the tax law to avoid taxes, but into the tax law to get the benefits. Monetary austerity: interest rate increase, tax the multitude by increasing the cost of their credit card debt to buy a car, a house. We are affected by it, not the multinational and the rich. If they are, they either get taxpayer help or just walk away on a multi-million-dollar cushion. They figure out how to privatize their profits and how to socialize their losses. Industrial austerity: consumers have less money to buy goods or services. Companies make less profit. They start by cutting their expenses, reduce their production, and then lay off workers. This produces tension between the worker and their company. Strikes ensue. Governments generally do a very poor job of promoting, encouraging communication between unions and companies. The government acts as if it is there to ensure that conflicts rot in place. In some cases, they pass laws to prohibit strike. Other times, they violently repress strike or use public relations to pit worker against worker. Austerity is not there to reduce inequality, but to stabilize the capital structure of corporations and the wealthy in the name of the individual entrepreneur. Taking austerity as an example, having defined its meaning, we must ask ourselves, what is the nature of this concept? Is it a universal or common concept? To better understand the differentiation I am trying to establish between the two, I will compare austerity to time. Time is universal. We did not invent time. It exists outside of us. Bergson explained that time is in continuous motion. It never stops. Its fluidity is difficult to grasp. If you try to differentiate the past from the present and the future, you quickly come to a dead end. The past no longer exists, the future does not yet exist, so does this mean that the present does not exist? No, we live in the past, present, and future at the same time. Time is a paradox, a certainty that cannot be grasped. We are able to apprehend it through an objective representation. To remedy this difficulty, Bergson explained that as humans, we had to represent time to ourselves by denaturing it. This denaturation is logical. It is based on the nature of the human mind, our language. We have invented an archetype, a concept of time, specifically adapted to our human apparatus, our senses. We cannot imagine all the three that have existed, exist, and will exist. So we imagine an intellectual creation to communicate. We have divided the time into sections. Based on astronomical observation, we use years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds. This distortion of time was necessary for us to meet in a certain place at a specific time. Otherwise, everyone will be using subjective time, which will make collaboration and communication very difficult. The representation of time can also be subjective. What does the subjective representation of time imply? Time is what allows our conversation and transformation through our memory. Conservation. The effect of time, past events are collected by our memory, which is the cement of our self-awareness, of our identity. Without memory, we no longer have an identity while past events continue to exist in others and beyond in our collective memory through their impact. Transformation. We cannot see time, but we can see its effect. Time appears in the changes, the evolution, the metamorphosis that take place. We do not see the nature of time, but its effect between 2 points where it flows from one to the other. Austerity, like time, is not our adversary. It is up to us to experience time through our memories and changes, but as a common concept, austerity was created in the universality of time. In order to make the changes we want and need, both parties need to be clear about this. The creator and user of austerity wrongly make it a universality. Some think that because it's a concept that was created from our universal capacity of language, austerity is therefore a universal concept. The universality of language is not transferred to what it creates. Others give austerity a universal character because of the use of mathematical equations to understand its behavior and effect. Logic is not outside of ourselves. On the contrary, this is how we can make sense of our environment from within, from the input to our senses. Others lie about the universality of austerity. They use the widespread adoption of this concept by global economy to say, oh, see, everyone is using it. Not only does this widespread adoption not make austerity a universal concept, but austerity was created by an exclusive group of people for their own benefit. Austerity is a common concept. Indeed, austerity was created by a small group of people compared to the rest of humanity. Government, economists, company, and wealthy individuals who needed a concept to stabilize the capital structure of the Homo economicus system without disrupting the current power structure and, if possible, reinforcing it with the concept of the individual entrepreneur. The commonality of austerity comes from its political origin. Also, unlike what we did with time, austerity was created not to stimulate communication for better collaboration between humans, but for control. We workers know firsthand that austerity is a common concept. We have always known this to be the case due to our coercion through institutional violence to impose this austerity on us. Not only is austerity exclusive in its creation, but also inclusive in the worst way possible in its implementation. How could this ever be presented as a universal concept if it had to be imposed on us? Why is it important to make this clarification? This clarification allows for possible communication. Both parties must agree that austerity is a common and subjective concept. It is not an objective, logical concept. Logic was used to design it, but its instantiation makes it subjective. Indeed, it represents the identity, the shared experience, the center of interest, the knowledge of the small group of people who created this concept of austerity. Austerity is a common concept that was created in a subjective representation of time. If we want to reform our economic and social model, we must meet in the same place, in the same space, and at the same time. This elite must come down from their tower of lie to join us in a subjective representation of time. They created austerity, apply its misdeed, and we have been its tributaries. If we want to collaborate in order to be able to rethink austerity, to reinvent who we are, we need to access our subjective time at the same time, our collective memory of the shared experience of austerity, which is part of our common consciousness. It is only through this shared memory that we will have access to the conservative and, above all, transformative power of time to bring about the changes we need for the benefit of the multitude.